A billionaire owner just stood in front of cameras and admitted he's responsible for one of the most embarrassing stretches in NFL history. 8 wins in 2 years, 11 head coaches since 1999, a franchise so broken that even a 2-time Coach of the Year couldn't save it. But here's what nobody saw coming. Jimmy Haslam isn't just firing people anymore. He's blowing up the entire system. He's changing how the Cleveland Browns operate from top to bottom. And if he gets this right, Shedeur Sanders might actually have a future in this league. But if he screws it up, which, let's be honest, is more likely, this franchise will stay buried for another decade. And the clock is already ticking. Haslam just announced they have 120 days to fix everything. That's it. 4 months to save an entire organization. This is the most critical offseason in Browns history, and it all starts right now. Don't go anywhere. Hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get absolutely wild.
January 6, 2026, Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea, Ohio. Jimmy Haslam, the managing and principal partner of the Cleveland Browns, walked into the lobby of team headquarters to face the media less than an hour after firing Kevin Stefanski. For most owners, this would be a quick statement, maybe a few softball questions, and then they'd disappear back into their offices. But Haslam knew this press conference was different. This wasn't about explaining why Stefanski was gone. This was about convincing a fan base that has suffered through 26 years of incompetence that things were actually going to change this time. And what he said in those opening remarks sent shockwaves through the entire organization. "I want you to hear this," Haslam began, pivoting immediately to address Browns fans directly. "First of all, ownership takes full responsibility for where we are. To win 8 games in 2 years is horrible. It's totally unacceptable, and it's not going to continue." He paused, letting that sink in. The Browns went 3-14 in 2024 and 5-12 in 2025. 8 wins in 34 games, the worst 2-year stretch in modern Browns history. And for the first time since buying the team in 2012, Haslam wasn't deflecting blame. He wasn't making excuses. He was owning it. "I want the fans to know we are as frustrated as you are," he continued. "And we hear a lot from our fans, which we actually appreciate." This was stunning. Jimmy Haslam has been one of the most criticized owners in professional sports. Since purchasing the Browns in 2012, the franchise has gone through 6 head coaches, 5 general managers, and posted a combined record well below 500. They've had exactly 2 non-losing seasons in that entire time, both under Kevin Stefanski, who just got fired. Haslam has been accused of meddling in football operations, making impulsive decisions, and creating a toxic culture that drives away talent. But on this Monday morning in January, he stood in front of the media and admitted he was the problem. And then he dropped the bombshell that could change everything. "The next 120 days are crucial for the organization," Haslam said, his voice firm and deliberate. "We've got to find the right head coach. We've got to be efficient again in free agency. We have 10 draft picks, including 2 number 1s. We have 4 picks in the top 3 rounds, and we've got to get really good players who are really good people again. We've got to be opportunistic if trade opportunities come along. We are solely focused on having a great 120 days so we can start winning games around here." 120 days. That's all the Browns have to turn this franchise around. Let's break down what that timeline means. January 6th to May 5th, 2026. In that window, the Browns have to hire a head coach, conduct a full coaching search with multiple rounds of interviews, finalize their coaching staff, navigate free agency, participate in the NFL scouting combine, conduct draft visits, and execute a 10-pick draft that includes 2 first-rounders. Oh, and they also have to figure out what to do with Deshaun Watson, who is owed $46 million guaranteed and carries an $80 million cap hit despite not playing a single snap in 2025. And if they don't nail every single decision in that 120-day window, this entire operation collapses. No pressure, right?
But here's the part that's sending ripples through the Browns organization and the entire NFL. Haslam isn't just changing coaches. He's reportedly considering a complete overhaul of the power structure that has defined this franchise for years. And if he follows through, it could be the most radical organizational change in Cleveland Browns history. Currently, the Browns operate under a dual reporting structure that is extremely rare in the NFL. Both general manager Andrew Berry and head coach Kevin Stefanski reported directly to Jimmy Haslam. They were equals in the organizational hierarchy, both trying to please the owner instead of one reporting to the other. It's a setup that Haslam preferred because it mirrors how he runs his business empire, multiple executives reporting directly to him at the top. But in the NFL, this structure almost never works. Why? Because when things go wrong, there's no clear line of accountability. The GM can blame the coach can blame the GM, and the owner has to play referee between two decision-makers who are supposed to be working together, but are actually competing for influence. When the Browns last went through a regime change in 2020, Stefanski was hired first, and then he joined the search committee that helped hire Berry as the general manager. It was an unusual process, but it made sense at the time, because Stefanski was coming in as an offensive-minded head coach, and they wanted a GM who aligned with his vision. But over the past 6 years, that structure created confusion. Who was really in charge of roster decisions? Who had final say on draft picks? Who was responsible when the offense ranked dead last in the league for 2 straight years? The answer was never clear. Now, with Stefanski gone and Berry staying, multiple reports indicate that Haslam is being urged by NFL insiders and his own advisors to change the power structure. The standard operating procedure in the NFL is for the head coach to report to the general manager, who then reports either to a CEO-type figure or directly to ownership. Some franchises flip it and have the GM report to the head coach, but that's rare and usually only happens with proven powerful coaches like Bill Belichick. What almost never happens is what the Browns have been doing, having both report directly to the owner. So what does this mean for the Browns moving forward? If Haslam restructures the organization, Andrew Berry would become the true head of football operations, and the new head coach would report to him. This would give Berry full authority over all personnel decisions, draft picks, free agent signings, and trades. The head coach would be responsible for game planning, player development, and on-field performance, but he wouldn't have final say on who's on the roster. It would create a clear chain of command, and it would finally answer the question that has plagued this franchise for years: who's actually in charge? But here's the catch. If Haslam goes through with this restructuring, it fundamentally changes the type of head coach the Browns can hire. A veteran, proven head coach like John Harbaugh might not want to report to Andrew Berry, a GM who just presided over 2 of the worst seasons in Browns history. Harbaugh has been a head coach for 18 years. He's won a Super Bowl. He's made the playoffs 12 times. Why would he come to Cleveland to work under a GM he doesn't know and who has a questionable track record? The answer is he probably wouldn't, which is why, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Browns are now unlikely to land Harbaugh, who is reportedly finalizing a deal to become the next head coach of the New York Giants.
Losing out on Harbaugh is a massive blow for the Browns. He was the dream candidate, a proven winner with Ohio ties who grew up as a Browns fan. If they had hired him, it would have sent a message to Myles Garrett, Shedeur Sanders, and the rest of the roster that the Browns were serious about winning. Instead, Harbaugh chose the Giants, a franchise that's almost as dysfunctional as Cleveland, but apparently has a clearer organizational vision. So now the Browns are left scrambling, interviewing a mix of offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, and retreads, trying to find someone who can fix an offense that ranked 30th in the league while keeping a defense that ranked 4th intact. And this is where the power structure issue becomes critical for Shedeur Sanders. The Browns are interviewing offensive coordinators like Todd Monken, who was Cleveland's OC in 2019, Dan Pitcher from the Bengals, who has ties to Andrew Berry from their days in Indianapolis, and Clint Kubiak from the Seahawks, who is considered one of the best young offensive minds in football.
They're also looking at defensive coordinators like Jim Schwartz, their own DC, who has been endorsed by players, Aiden Durd from the Seahawks, and Jesse Minter from the Chargers. And then there's Tommy Rees, Cleveland's current offensive coordinator, who worked with Sanders during his rookie season and knows his strengths and weaknesses better than anyone. But here's the problem. None of these candidates have the power to override Andrew Berry when it comes to the quarterback decision. If Berry decides he wants to draft a quarterback with the number 6 overall pick, the new head coach has to live with it. If Berry decides to give Deshaun Watson one more chance to prove himself, the new head coach has to work with him. If Berry decides that Shedeur Sanders is a bridge quarterback and not the long-term answer, Sanders is done in Cleveland before he even gets a fair shot. And that's what makes this power structure so dangerous for Sanders. His future is in the hands of a GM who has already shown he doesn't fully believe in him. Remember what Berry said on January 6th when asked about Shedeur? "I think we saw a lot of progress with Shedeur this year. He's still very much a work in progress, like many rookie quarterbacks are, but I can't sit here and tell you today whether the solution for the starter in 2026 is internal or external." That's not an endorsement. That's a GM hedging his bets. And if the Browns restructure the organization to give Berry even more power, Sanders is at his mercy. Now let's talk about the 120-day timeline and what it means for Sanders. The Browns don't have time to waste. Here's how the next 4 months break down. January 31st, Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. This is where the Browns scouting staff will get their first in-person look at the top quarterback prospects in the 2026 draft, including Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, and Ty Simpson. If any of these guys blow them away, it could spell the end for Sanders. February 8th, Super Bowl. The league essentially shuts down for a week while everyone watches the championship game. February 23rd through March 2nd, NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. This is where quarterbacks throw, interview, and go through medical evaluations. The Browns will have private meetings with every top quarterback prospect, and this is where they'll make their final determination on whether to draft one. March 9th, free agents can begin negotiating with other teams. The Browns could bring in a veteran quarterback like Daniel Jones or Malik Willis to compete with Sanders. March 11th, the 2026 league year begins. Free agent signings and trading officially start. April 23rd through 25th, NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. This is the moment of truth. If the Browns use the number 6 pick on a quarterback, Sanders is done. If they pass on a QB and go another direction, Sanders gets a legitimate shot to be the starter. But by the time the draft rolls around, the new head coach will have been in place for months. He'll have evaluated Sanders during off-season workouts, and he'll have a strong opinion on whether the rookie can lead this team. Here's the terrifying reality for Shedeur Sanders. The Browns could hire a head coach in late January or early February, spend March and April evaluating him, and then draft his replacement in late April. Sanders would never even get a chance to compete. He'd be relegated to backup duty before his second training camp even starts. And if that happens, his career in Cleveland is over. He'll either ride the bench for years while a rookie develops, or he'll demand a trade and start over somewhere else. Neither option is good.
But there's another scenario, a better one, and it all depends on who the Browns hire and whether Jimmy Haslam is serious about this organizational overhaul. If the Browns hire an offensive-minded head coach who believes in Sanders, and if they restructure the organization to give that coach real authority over the quarterback decision, Sanders could thrive. Tommy Rees, for example, has worked with Sanders all year. He knows what the rookie can do. He knows his arm talent, his football IQ, and his ability to extend plays with his legs. If Rees becomes the head coach and reports to Berry, but has autonomy over the offense, he could build a system around Sanders that maximizes his strengths. Or what if the Browns go in a completely different direction? What if they hire Clint Kubiak, who has a reputation for developing young quarterbacks? Kubiak helped Geno Smith resurrect his career in Seattle. He could do the same for Sanders. Or what if they bring in Joe Brady from the Bills, who has worked wonders with Josh Allen? Brady could take Sanders' raw talent and mold him into a franchise quarterback.
The possibilities are endless, but only if Jimmy Haslam gets the organizational structure right. If he keeps the current system where the GM and head coach compete for power, nothing changes. But if he creates a clear hierarchy and hires the right coach, the Browns could finally break the cycle. And here's the thing about Jimmy Haslam. He's desperate. He admitted it in his press conference. To win 8 games in 2 years is horrible. It's totally unacceptable, and it's not going to continue. He's owned the Browns for 14 years, and in that time, they've been one of the most dysfunctional franchises in sports. He's fired coaches, fired GMs, and cycled through quarterbacks like they're disposable. And now, after all of that, he's finally admitting that maybe, just maybe, the problem starts at the top. If he's serious about changing the power structure, it's the first sign that he understands what everyone else has known for years. You can't run an NFL team like a business. You need football people making football decisions, and you need a clear chain of command. But the clock is ticking. The Browns have 120 days to get this right. They're interviewing head coaches right now. Jim Schwartz sat down with ownership on January 8th. Tommy Rees interviewed the same day. Aiden Durde and Dan Pitcher met with the Browns on January 9th. Todd Monken's interview is coming soon. Jesse Minter from the Chargers is on the list. The Browns are casting a wide net, but they need to move fast. Other teams are hiring coaches. The Giants just landed Harbaugh. The Ravens are expected to hire someone in the next week or two. The Falcons are revamping their entire front office with Matt Ryan as the new president of football. The NFL is moving on, and the Browns are still stuck trying to figure out who they want to be. And in the middle of all this chaos sits Shedeur Sanders, a 23-year-old rookie quarterback who just finished a brutal first season. He threw 10 interceptions and only 7 touchdowns. He completed just 56.6% of his passes. His total QBR ranked 28th out of 29 qualifying quarterbacks. But he also showed flashes of brilliance. He threw for 364 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Titans. He led a game-winning drive in the season finale. He extended plays with his legs and showed poise under pressure. And most importantly, his teammates believe in him. They see the potential. They know what he's capable of. But none of that matters if Andrew Berry decides to draft his replacement or if the new head coach doesn't believe in him. This is the crossroads. Jimmy Haslam just promised Browns fans that things will be different this time. He said the next 120 days are crucial. He said they're going to find the right head coach, hit in free agency, nail the draft, and start winning games. But the reality is, the Browns have made these promises before. They've fired coaches before, they've drafted quarterbacks before, they've restructured before, and every single time it's ended in disaster. So why should anyone believe this time is different? The answer is simple. Because Jimmy Haslam has never publicly admitted responsibility like this before. He's never laid out a specific timeline. He's never acknowledged that the organizational structure might be the problem. And if he's willing to blow it all up and start fresh, not just with a new coach, but with a new way of operating, there's a chance, however small, that the Browns could actually get this right. And if they do, Shedeur Sanders could be the biggest beneficiary. But if they don't, he'll be just another name on the long list of quarterbacks who came to Cleveland with hope and left with nothing. The clock is ticking. 120 days. That's all they have. The Browns are about to find out if Jimmy Haslam is serious about changing, or if this is just another false start in a franchise defined by them.